Oh, come on! How's it going, everybody? We are here at the final part of my Atari Flashback Classics Volume 2 review. I'm not going to miss saying that title because it is such a mouthful. I don't know if you're excited about all this ending, but I sure as hell am. I'm also thrilled that there are no more sports games for me to go over and fail at on here. Anyway, let's see if any of these games to review today are winners. First up is Skydiver, a game where you have a little guy who jumps out of a moving plane and your job is to steer him onto the little pad thing that's on the ground. If any part of him is even slightly off the pad when he lands, his body is crushed, and as the old joke about bugs hitting a windshield goes, the first thing that likely goes through this guy's mind is his ass. The carnage will continue until you eventually get it right, which for me took something like 5 minutes, because that's about how much depth this game has. Next. My understanding is that Asteroids borrowed some of the gameplay from Space War, so when I describe this as Asteroids without the rocks, I'm not just summarizing. That's exactly what this game is. The ship's controls are just like in that game, except in this, you're just battling another ship. It's extremely simple, like Pong simple. And just like your mother, nobody's going to want to mess around with this for more than a minute or two, but at least after finishing with this, I won't need to shower or change my phone number. Next. Starship is this little space shooter game where you're just shooting at targets that come at you. They're supposed to be enemy ships, but they look more like the hats the Devo wore in the Whip It video, and some of them reminded me of a B-Wing from Star Wars. Yes, I'm that dorky. Anyways, there's also Cheetos clusters to avoid, and the game was really slow, and every time you shot something you'd get this annoying ring sound, and the game would stop for a moment. Imagine playing a game like Star Wars Squadrons or Ace Combat, and the game would stop for a moment or two every single time you hit something. Next. When a game's manual says on the first page that the complexity will make it necessary for you to periodically refer to this manual during your first several missions, and it's also a good idea to use a notepad and pencil to keep track of vital information during each mission, I've already checked out. I did a minimal amount of note-taking in high school and college, which I'm sure has nothing to do with why I barely graduated from both, and I'm not about to start here either. This game is what you get if you let an accountant or CPA design a game using only an Excel spreadsheet. You hope for cones of Dunshire, but instead you get this. I didn't understand it when I tried playing it, and like most things I don't understand, I gave up on it quickly. Next. I'm going to reach back pretty far here, but Street Racer reminds me of these handheld games I'd play as a kid. Basically, they were these really simple games where you'd usually just move your little vehicle around other cars or maybe some other obstacles. They look primitive, but if you were a kid who didn't have a game console and wanted a toy to take on the go, these could scratch the itch and they fit conveniently in your mom's oversized 1980s purse with no problem. So maybe it's the nostalgia, but I kind of enjoyed this one because it plays the same way. I played two-player with my daughter, and while she got enraged at hitting obstacles and seeing her car or skier crumple from injuries that'd surely make her a head of cabbage in the hospital, I laughed and enjoyed myself until she got mad at me about it. Next. I don't enjoy anything having to do with submarines, except maybe the sandwiches. And for those thinking, did you not like The Hunt for Red October? I admittedly never saw that movie. And now, for those of you thinking, how could you not see that movie? Just for the record, I also didn't actually watch Top Gun for my first time, until last year. Ironically, however, I really did enjoy Submarine Commander. It's this cool little game where you're watching your radar and blowing up ships as they pass by, and you can elevate your periscope to adjust your view. None of the ships appear to have guns on them, so the story I made up in my head is that you're a band of Somali pirates who stole a sub, probably from Russians, and then you go about blowing up cruise ships as they go by. Or you're the iceberg that sank the Titanic, and now that you're middle-aged and feeling insecure of yourself, you steal a sub, probably from Russians, and you're taking pot shots at other cruise liners to relive your glory days and prove to your iceberg children and iceberg wife that you're not as lame as they think. Next. Super Breakout is the same thing as Super Breakout in the arcades, but it's worse looking. Were you surprised by this? Because I wasn't. Next. For those of you who are fans of the game Snake and also played Snake on your graphing calculators in school, then this one's for you. Surround is basically the Atari version of Snake, but very blocky and ugly, and the sound of the snake moving around is awful and constant. In fact, the only thing more grating to listen to is the shrill squawk of Elizabeth Warren's voice. Next. I'm lumping video checkers and chess into one section because they're so similar to each other. I don't know why they put these board games on the Atari to begin with. In the time it takes you to figure out how to play the game on the console, you could just pull out your actual checkers or chess game from the closet and play that instead. Anyways, this is checkers and chess, and they're on Atari. Checkers plays like actual checkers because it is in fact checkers. Video chess is just like video checkers, with the biggest difference is that it's chess and not checkers. I guess if you had no chess or checkers sets and really only had these games to play, then they'll work. I mean, they don't play badly, they just don't make a ton of sense to own. As you can tell, there's not a lot to say about these. You move the pieces and they make bloop and bleep noises, and then you get mad at your friend for killing your queen earlier than you expected, and then you never play the game again. Next. And last but certainly not least, we have Video Pinball. There's really not a ton going on with this one, and it was as exciting as staring at a wall. It has flippers, but it doesn't feel like pinball, and it doesn't really look like pinball either. Nothing in this really felt like I was playing it on a table, either. And again, I know that these are very early console games, and I feel a little harsh saying all of this, but I mean, look at it. I guess the biggest compliment I could give it is that it reminded me a little of the NES pinball game that released as a launch title with the NES in 1985. And that was it for Volume 2 of the Atari Flashback Classics games. I really wish I could have ended this with a stronger game, but I was going in alphabetical order, and that's how it goes. If I had to choose which volume is my favorite so far, I would choose to just play the arcade games as part of some other collection and skip these. Crystal Castles in this volume was definitely one of my favorites, and Missile Command is a hoot to play, and I think for me, those alone edge out the games in Volume 1. And that had solid games in it also, like Tempest and Black Widow. I just don't like them as much as the arcade games here. I guess I just like bears more than spiders. Anyway, if you watch this series from beginning to end, I really appreciate it because we both know there were some highs and some definite lows, and it's not always easy to keep this entertaining. Let me know what Atari games you like in the comments, or just old games in general, and once Volume 3 comes available on either Game Pass or PlayStation Now, I'll go through those also, but as it stands, I'm sure as hell not going to pay for it. See you next time. Congratulations! You're one of an elite few to make it to the end of the video. Reward yourself by hitting the round subscribe button in the middle, and then check out the other goodies I've got in the links next to it.